Fort Macon State Park is located just outside of Atlantic Beach on the shore of North Carolina. And it is a wonderful park. It's got a little of everything. It's got a fort, certainly, because that's what it's called, Fort Macon. But it's also got a very nice beach and a very nice hiking trail. So the three items at Fort Macon are the fort, the beach, and the hiking trail. The fort is very well maintained, and it's nice sized, and it's got a very interesting history, both for the Civil War and World War II. And it is very nicely preserved, and there is a guided tour during certain days, several times a day, that are conducted by volunteers. And it was very, very informative. Walk all the way around the fort, and it took about 45 minutes.
The five-sided Fort Macon is constructed of brick and stone. 26 vaulted rooms are enclosed by outer walls that are 4.5 feet thick. Other features of the fort includes powder magazines, counterfire rooms with cannon emplacements, and a wide moat, which serves to protect the fort when flooded with waters from the Bogue Sound. An inner court or parade ground is often the scene of historic reenactments. There is a very nice visitor center with a movie that you can watch to understand the history of the area and the history of the fort. Beaufort was one of the first harbors to be designated as a port of entry during colonial times. Along with this, however, came danger. They were often raided by the pirates, like the infamous Blackbeard, and raided by the Spanish raiders as well as the English raiders. There were a couple of attempts to construct forts to protect the city. For example, Fort Dobbs was never completed, and Fort Hampton was built, but it got washed into the sea. Construction of Fort Macon, where it stands now, began in 1826, and it was garrisoned in 1834. It was named after the U.S. Senator Nathaniel Macon of North Carolina, who procured the funds to build the fort. A system of stone jetties was constructed in the 1840s to control erosion. These jetties were engineered by none other than Robert E. Lee, who of course later became the general of the Confederate States Army. At the start of the Civil War, there was a single caretaker that was occupying the fort. North Carolina, with a few soldiers, came knocking on the door, basically says, "Hey, get out, we're going to take over the fort." And they did. What's a single guy going to do, right? In 1862, the Union warships bombarded the fort with superior cannons, and after an 11-hour battle, the fort fell to the Union forces. The commander raised a white flag when he realized that there were cracks forming right at the walls of where the munition is, and suspected that the Union Army knew where the munition is, and if he didn't surrender, it was risking the whole thing blowing up and killing everybody in the fort. After the war, the fort was a federal prison from 1867 to 1876 and was garrisoned during the Spanish-American War but closed in 1903. North Carolina purchased the fort for $1 in 1923 and made it into a state park. Of course, that was with a stipulation that if there was ever a national security need, that the federal government can have it back. And in fact, they did. During World War II, this was garrisoned as a fort. From 1934 to 1935, the fort was restored by the Civilian Conservation Corps. So for all that work, the fort saw 11 hours of battle in total. You can join a guided tour, which is fascinating, as the guide takes you around the fort and explain all the nice details of what you see there. So for example, you can see the bread oven here. During those days, everybody had a ration of 1 loaf of bread. And there was a funny story where there was actually a mutiny because the person that was baking the bread was not very good, and the bread was actually declared unedible by the local doctor here that was in the fort. And if you only get 1 loaf of bread as a ration a day and that bread is not edible, you're in big trouble. So the soldiers basically wanted to get the flour so that they can bake their own bread. Here you see the oven where they heat up the cannonballs. so that when they lob the cannonballs over and whatever hits is hot enough to cause a fire. Can you imagine being the poor guy that has to transfer these hot cannonballs from the oven up to the cannons? The fort is nicely restored, and it's certainly worth an hour or two to look around and just really think about what happened and why the fort was constructed and the daily life at the port.
The Nature Trail, which is the Elliot Coues Nature Trail, it's a 3.2 mile trail that goes up one side of the road and down the other. And the beach side of the road is very sunny with only occasional shade. So if you come, make sure you bring sunscreen and all that. On the other side of the trail, it is relatively flat and it is shady most of the way, but not all the way. On that side of the trail, you see a nice swampy area with wildlife outlooking into the sound. And on the beach side, you don't really see the beach, you see the sand dunes. And it is just very sunny over here, and actually very hilly. So the Nature Trail is actually a very nice 3.2 mile walk that gets your heart pumping a little bit. It is rated moderate by the Park Service here. So you really want to come here when it's not so hot, and you really want to come here with some kind of sunshade and bring some water. You do get occasional periods like this where it's nice and shady, but on the ocean side of the trail, it is mostly sunny with almost no shade. And of course, you have the beach. You can do whatever you want on the beach. People fish on it. People just lay there, relax. The waves are not that strong. And it's just a nice beach day. And they have some nice facilities here to get you situated and to clean yourself up afterwards. There's also a very nice picnic area right by the changing stations. So it is quite complete area where you can come out, enjoy the beach, take a hike, and visit a historical site. That is the fort. So a lot to do for the whole family.
We are on our way to visit all the national parks in the United States. Follow along by hitting the subscribe button below. Hit the notification bell so you know when a new video is released. Give it a thumbs up if you like this video, and please share it with everybody that you know.